They were the family that made Sundays feel safe. A minister, his loving wife, and 7 children trying to live right in a world that kept going wrong. Seventh Heaven wasn't just a TV show, it was therapy for a nation looking for innocence again. When it premiered in 1996, every episode ended with a hug, a prayer, or a lesson about forgiveness. Parents saw it as proof that morality could still win on television. Kids saw it as comfort, a family that never gave up on each other. The Camden house wasn't a set, it was a sanctuary. Stephen Collins, as Reverend Eric Camden, became the country's model father. Gentle, wise, unshakable. Catherine Hicks embodied the perfect mother, firm but tender, the anchor everyone wished they had. And the Camden kids, Jessica Biel, Beverly Mitchell, Barry Watson, David Gallagher, Mackenzie Rosman, and the twins grew up before our eyes, preaching patience and purity to millions. For 11 seasons, Seventh Heaven sold one powerful message: faith fixes everything. Even when life breaks you, belief and love can rebuild what's lost. But what happens when the faces who preach that message can't live it themselves? Behind the scenes, this picture-perfect family hid real fractures, silent suffering, personal rebellion, and one secret so dark it would destroy the show's reputation forever. The same world that crowned Seventh Heaven as television's moral compass would one day turn on it in shock and disbelief. They said Seventh Heaven showed us how to live better. The truth is, it showed us how easily perfection can lie. Because behind the sermons and smiles, even heaven had shadows. The year was 1996. American television was drifting towards cynicism. Crime shows, sitcom sarcasm, and anti-heroes filled the screen. And then out of nowhere came a show that felt like a time capsule from a gentler era. Seventh Heaven didn't promise explosions or scandals. It promised love, faith, and forgiveness. It became an overnight cultural reset. Created by Brenda Hampton, the show was simple but audacious. It followed the Camden family, a small-town minister, his wife, and their 7 children, through moral dilemmas that felt personal to every viewer. One week it was teenage rebellion. The next it was heartbreak, death, or forgiveness. It asked audiences to look inward, to question their own choices. Stephen Collins and Catherine Hicks were cast as Eric and Annie Camden, the moral backbone of the series. They didn't just play parents, they represented ideals. Every episode framed them as counselors, guiding not only their fictional children but also the millions watching at home. Their calm voices, their family dinners, their values, it all became a kind of television therapy. Then came the children, a lineup that would grow up before America's eyes. Jessica Biel's Mary, Barry Watson's Matt, Beverly Mitchell's Lucy, David Gallagher's Simon, Mackenzie Rosman's Ruthie, and eventually the twins. They weren't just TV characters, they were the kids of an entire generation. When they stumbled, the nation learned with them. When they found faith, audiences wept with relief. The show premiered on the WB network, a fledgling channel desperate for a hit, and Seventh Heaven became its crown jewel. At its peak, it was the most-watched family drama on television, airing in more than 20 countries. But what made Seventh Heaven so magnetic, its image of moral perfection would later become the very thing that shattered it. It began as a prayer for America's soul. But prayers, as we'll see, don't always get answered the way we expect. For more than a decade, he was the face of moral authority, a man who preached patience, compassion, and righteousness. Stephen Collins wasn't just playing Reverend Eric Camden, he became him. Viewers trusted him. Parents pointed to him as a role model. He was America's TV pastor, a father figure for families who needed one. When the show aired, Collins played the perfect patriarch, patient when his children lied, loving when they failed, wise when life broke them. His sermons in Seventh Heaven weren't just dialogue, they were lessons. He spoke like a man who believed every word. Off camera, he carried himself with the same quiet dignity. In interviews, he talked about the importance of kindness, the sanctity of family, the beauty of forgiveness. He was exactly who people wanted him to be. And then in 2014, everything changed. An audio recording surfaced, a confession that shattered everything. Collins admitted to sexually abusing 3 underage girls, crimes that stretched back decades. The man who once stood in the pulpit on TV was suddenly unmasked as someone capable of the unthinkable. The story spread like wildfire. Networks immediately pulled Seventh Heaven reruns off the air. His colleagues, stunned, went silent. Fans felt betrayed, as if their own family had lied to them. No charges were filed due to the statute of limitations, but public opinion rendered its own verdict. Collins vanished from Hollywood, retreating into isolation. He issued a public apology saying he'd spent years in therapy and repentance, but forgiveness was not his to demand. Today he lives far from the industry he once led, his name now synonymous not with faith but hypocrisy. The image of Reverend Camden, once a symbol of goodness, is forever poisoned by the man behind the role. He taught millions to tell right from wrong and then crossed the line himself. The fall wasn't just his, it was ours, forever believing in perfection. If Stephen Collins was the fatherly heart of Seventh Heaven, Catherine Hicks was its soul. As Annie Camden, she embodied the perfect mother, nurturing but fierce, forgiving but never foolish. She was the calm voice after every storm, the one who reminded her children that love meant responsibility. To millions, she wasn't just a character, she was comfort. Born in 1951 in Arizona, Hicks was already a respected actress before Seventh Heaven. She'd earned an Emmy nomination for Marilyn the Untold Story and starred opposite Tom Hanks in Bosom Buddies. But nothing compared to the impact of Annie Camden. It wasn't just a role, it became her identity. Audiences wrote her letters, thanking her for saving marriages, healing broken families, and giving mothers hope. When the Stephen Collins scandal erupted, Catherine Hicks's world turned upside down. The man she had spent 11 years calling her on-screen husband, the moral compass of their fictional home, was exposed as someone entirely different off-screen. The show's reruns were pulled overnight, interviews resurfaced, and the cast became collateral damage in a story none of them wrote. But Hicks handled it with quiet strength. In interviews, she expressed heartbreak, calling the situation tragic and devastating, but also compassion, saying she believed in healing and accountability. She refused to let bitterness define her. While Hollywood moved on, she returned to what grounded her most, family and faith, the same virtues she once portrayed. In her later years, Hicks continued working, guest roles, independent films, theater. She's kept her privacy, living quietly with her husband, makeup artist Kevin Yeager, and their daughter. To this day, fans still call her Mom. Because unlike the characters she played beside, she never betrayed what she preached. When the father fell, the mother stood tall, proving that real grace isn't scripted, it's lived. Before she was a Hollywood A-lister, before red carpets and global fame, Jessica Biel was simply Mary Camden, the strong-willed, athletic, sometimes reckless daughter of America's most wholesome TV family. She joined Seventh Heaven at just 14, her character quickly becoming the show's wild card, the child who questioned authority and pushed back against the perfect image. What audiences didn't know was that off-screen, Jessica was doing the same thing. As the show's success skyrocketed, Biel found herself trapped in an image she couldn't escape. The preacher's daughter who could do no wrong. She was growing up under the microscope, every word, outfit, and photo dissected by fans who thought she was supposed to be Mary Camden, not just play her. The pressure was suffocating. In 2000, at age 17, she made a choice that would explode into controversy. She posed semi-nude for Gear magazine, desperate to shed the good girl label. The reaction was immediate and brutal. Parents condemned her. The WB network was furious. Even some of her castmates were stunned. Within a year, she was written off the show. Jessica Biel, once the face of Seventh Heaven's innocence, had become its fallen angel. But she didn't crumble. She pivoted. After leaving, Biel rebuilt her career from scratch, starring in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Illusionist, and Total Recall. Slowly, the narrative changed. She wasn't the rebellious teen anymore. She was one of Hollywood's most versatile actresses. Today, Jessica Biel is a producer, entrepreneur, and mother of two with her husband Justin Timberlake. She has reclaimed her own story, one that started in a church pew but ended on her own terms. They wanted her to stay pure. Instead, she chose to be real. And in doing so, she became everything Mary Camden never could: free. If Seventh Heaven had a heart outside its parents, it was Barry Watson, the actor who played Matt Camden, the eldest son and the quiet protector of the family. Matt wasn't perfect. He made mistakes, doubted his faith, questioned the rules, but that's what made him real. He was the bridge between the Camdens' ideals and the audience's reality. Off-screen, Barry Watson shared that same sincerity. Born in Michigan in 1974, he started as a model before landing bit parts in shows like Malibu Shores. When Seventh Heaven came calling, he was just 22, young, ambitious, and eager to prove himself. The role changed his life overnight. He became a teen heartthrob, a role model and a symbol of kindness wrapped in quiet rebellion. But behind the calm surface, life was far from easy. In 2002, at just 28, Barry was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, a form of cancer. For months, he stepped away from filming to undergo chemotherapy, unsure if he would ever return. The cast rallied around him, sending letters, prayers, and visiting him during recovery. The on-screen family became a real one. He beat the disease. When he returned to Seventh Heaven, fans saw it in his eyes. The resilience, the gratitude. Every line he delivered carried a new weight. He wasn't acting anymore. He was living. After the show ended, Barry continued working. What About Brian, Samantha Who, Gossip Girl, and Masters of Sex? He married Natasha Gregson Wagner, daughter of actress Natalie Wood, and found peace in fatherhood. Unlike so many of his co-stars, Barry avoided scandal, excess, or public breakdowns. He chose a quiet strength over fame. He walked through the valley of illness and came out shining, proof that not every Camden story ended in tragedy. If there was one cast member who truly embodied the spirit of Seventh Heaven both on and off screen, it was Beverly Mitchell. She played Lucy Camden, the emotional, idealistic middle daughter, the one who cried easily, dreamed big, and wanted to fix everyone's problems. For 11 seasons, Lucy was the heart of the Camden household, stubborn, sensitive, and endlessly hopeful. And the woman who played her, she wasn't that different. Beverly joined Seventh Heaven at just 15. She wasn't a Hollywood insider, just a small-town girl with a big dream. The show became her second family. She often said the cast felt like a real church, a place where everyone supported one another. She grew up in front of the camera through high school, heartbreak, and adulthood, and when the series ended, she wasn't ready to let go. After Seventh Heaven, Beverly struggled with the same curse that haunts many child actors: typecasting. Casting directors couldn't see beyond Lucy Camden, the preacher's daughter. Roles were scarce, and fame faded fast. Instead of chasing it, she found her purpose elsewhere. In 2006, she released a self-titled country album. The songs weren't about fame, they were about faith, love, and growing up under expectations. Later, she embraced family life, marrying her longtime love Michael Cameron and raising 3 children. But Beverly never truly left Seventh Heaven. She's kept the show's spirit alive through interviews, podcasts, and heartfelt posts honoring her castmates. In 2020, she even launched a Seventh Heaven Rewatch podcast, where she shared behind-the-scenes stories, laughter, heartbreak, and lessons that still resonate. When the Stephen Collins scandal broke, Beverly's response was pure heartbreak. She called it devastating but said she refused to let one person's actions erase what the show meant to millions. She didn't chase fame, she kept the faith, proving that sometimes the truest believer isn't the preacher, it's the daughter who never stopped believing in good. They were the youngest faces of Seventh Heaven's golden years. David Gallagher as Simon Camden, and Mackenzie Rosman as Ruthie Camden. To fans, they were the sweet, innocent souls of the show, kids growing up under the careful watch of their TV parents, their lives unfolding in real time as the series aged with them. But behind the innocence, both actors faced the enormous pressure of growing up inside a bubble that didn't allow mistakes. David Gallagher joined Seventh Heaven at just 10 years old. Audiences adored his boyish charm and wide-eyed sincerity. Simon was the kind of son every parent wanted, polite, honest, and endlessly curious. But by his teenage years, David began to feel trapped. Fame at that age isn't a blessing, it's a microscope. Every awkward phase, every growing pain, every bad haircut was broadcast to millions. By season 8, he stepped away from the series to pursue college at USC. It was a brave decision, walking away from guaranteed fame to find himself. He later returned for a few guest appearances, but his heart was already elsewhere. Gallagher eventually transitioned behind the camera, focusing on education, voice acting, and selective roles. He still works occasionally, but lives mostly out of the spotlight, quiet, grounded, and free. Mackenzie Rosman's journey was similar, yet sharper. She was only 6 when she first appeared as Ruthie, the youngest Camden, precocious, curious, and impossibly cute. But growing up on camera came with a cost. When the show ended, casting agents still saw her as the little girl with pigtails. Frustrated, Mackenzie took on edgier roles, indie films, photo shoots, and modeling, an attempt to reclaim her identity. Today, Mackenzie has found balance. She's active in philanthropy, particularly equestrian charities, and became a mother in 2022. Like many of her co-stars, she's chosen peace over spotlight. Their journeys mirror the show's legacy itself, a story that began with purity and ended with quiet, complicated adulthood. They grew up under Heaven's light and learned that growing up means stepping out of it. Late into Seventh Heaven's run, just when fans thought the Camden family couldn't get any bigger, 2 tiny faces appeared. The twins Sam and David Camden. Played by Nicholas and Lorenzo Brino, they were the adorable final pieces in television's most perfect family portrait. Born in 1998, the identical brothers joined the show as babies and grew up in front of the camera, stealing hearts with every laugh, hug, and mischievous smile. Their presence marked a new era of innocence for the show, a way to keep the family spirit alive as the older siblings went off to college or began their own stories. The twins didn't have many lines, but they didn't need to. They were symbols, tiny reminders of hope, of renewal, of the love that Seventh Heaven claimed could endure any hardship. Off-screen, their childhood was far quieter. After the show ended in 2007, the Brino brothers stepped away from Hollywood completely. Their parents made the decision to give them privacy, a rare gift for children who had spent nearly a decade on one of TV's most watched series. The world moved on, the cameras turned elsewhere, and the twins grew up like any other kids, until tragedy struck. On March 9, 2020, Lorenzo Brino died in a single-vehicle car accident in Yucaipa, California. He was only 21 years old. The news devastated fans who still remembered his bright smile from the show's closing seasons. His twin brother Nicholas was left to carry a memory that the world had shared with him, a childhood frozen forever in reruns and old family photos. The death of Lorenzo was more than just a tragic accident. It was a sobering reminder of how fragile life can be, even for those who once lived inside TV's safest sanctuary. He came into the world surrounded by light, laughter, and love, and left it far too soon. For millions, the Camden twins will always stay 6 years old, untouched by time or by tragedy. When Seventh Heaven finally ended in 2007, after 243 episodes, it was more than the conclusion of a TV series. It was the end of an era. For 11 years, the Camden family had given America something to believe in. They were the antidote to cynicism, proof that family, faith, and forgiveness could still hold a fractured world together. But time, as always, reveals the truth behind perfection. For some, the show's message of love and morality still resonates. For others, it feels tainted by the scandal that destroyed its patriarch. The Stephen Collins revelations didn't just break headlines. They shattered the illusion that Seventh Heaven represented something incorruptible. Fans were left questioning everything. Were the values they grew up watching ever real? Or were they just beautifully written lies? And yet the story doesn't end there. Because for every fall from grace, there were those who rose above it. Catherine Hicks, Beverly Mitchell, Barry Watson, Jessica Biel, and so many others carried the lessons, not the shame, forward. They became proof that one man's sins didn't erase the goodness others built. In the years since, the cast has lived full lives. Marriages, children, healing. A few have said that they'd welcome a reunion someday, not to relive the past, but to reclaim it. And in a way, fans already have. Reruns and streaming platforms keep the Camdens alive, for better or worse. People still revisit the show not out of blind nostalgia, but because it reminds them of something simple, that even when faith breaks, love can still survive. The truth about Seventh Heaven is this: it was never really about perfection. It was about trying, about failing, about forgiving. The show's world fell apart, but the message, the desperate human hope that families can endure anything, still whispers beneath the wreckage. Heaven may have fallen, but its echo remains, not in sermons or scandals, but in the quiet belief that somewhere, somehow, love still redeems us.